Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our 10th edition of Fans Perspective. 10. I'm your host, Steve Hatch.
I'm your co-host, Mike Greco. I'm surprised you can count that high.
Yeah, what a laugh. Anyway, for our 10th edition, we're going to do something new with this episode. It's going to be our first in our Superstar series. So we're going to be talking about a particular superstar, someone who has meant a lot to the business. And the fact you can say this guy really is almost everything to the business. I mean, he was a great star in the WWE, in WCW. He's responsible for so many careers. You know, so many of our people our age and people all over love this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's known all over.
And it's perfect timing. You know, he's in the news like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, what can I say? Roddy Piper is the most...
We're gonna have one on Roddy Piper. Rest assured, we will. But
it's not about Roddy Piper.
No, we're not talking about Roddy Piper today. That's gonna be down the line. But you're close.
Folks, my goof. I'm sorry. This means a lot to me because I was a big fan of this guy growing up. The Macho Man, Randy.
See, we are going to be talking about Macho Man.
You cut me off.
But you're still close, but no cigar. This is.
All right. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The Crippler. Chris.
Whoa. We're not gonna. We're gonna try to. Yeah. I know. Listen, I'll just get to it because you didn't read my notes. We're gonna be talking about the Immortal Hulk Hogan.
Oh, why didn't you say that?
Well, I thought I made it clear. This man is like synonymous with professional wrestling. I mean, there's so many people out there who they don't know anything about wrestling, but they know Hulk Hogan.
He's the biggest star in the wrestling industry all time. I
mean, he's done it all. He's been heel, he's been face. WWE, WCW,
movies, TV shows.
He still is relevant to this day, even though he cannot go in the ring anymore.
Well, he would like to go in the ring. That's for sure. He's tried to, push his way into a main event not a main event, but into WrestleMania the last few years. We just assume it would be a main event.
Well, I mean, you can't face facts that there is still money, there is still interest in Hulk Hogan.
There is to a point, especially with the whole selling of the network. It got to the point of, hey Vince, I'll go wear this pink tutu if I can get out there and get a match, brother.
Well, that might have to do with some of his little personal transgressions here, but we're here strictly to talk about the career of Hulk Hogan. So we're gonna jump right into the start. He was trained, of course. He was discovered by the Briscoes, Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
Jack and Jerry, yes.
In a gym because he was always a big guy. He was actually more into music and stuff back in the day, but then he went and got trained by a Japanese wrestler, Hiro Matsuda.
Yep.
And in fact, if you read his book, he talks about how he actually back then the business was different. And, you don't go to school. You weren't coddled back then. They actually broke his leg on his first day of training.
First day of training, yes. Yeah. And, you think about the Japanese style, the strong style. We think about Hulk Hogan not as the greatest technical wrestler, but to be trained and everything and go through the Japanese system, he had to have something. He had to be doing something right.
Yeah, he came back. He came back 4 months later when he could go in the ring again, and he stuck with it. So he debuted for Championship Wrestling in Florida, actually one of the old territories. He actually got the name Hulk Hogan when he was working in Memphis. He was actually a guest on a local talk show, and
he was sitting with Lou Ferrigno. Correct?
Yes, who was the Incredible Hulk at this time, the late 70s. And the host commented to him, he noticed that Hogan was a lot bigger than Lou Ferrigno. And
imagine that.
Yeah, and he made a comment to him. He said, hey, maybe we should call you the Hulk. Maybe you should be the Incredible Hulk. And ever since then, he is known as Hulk
Hogan.
The Incredible Hulk.
The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. I mean, he had a short time where he teamed with Brutus the Barber Beefcake. There's always rumors that they were brothers. And they were Terry and Ed Boulder.
Boulder, yes.
So they were...
I don't believe they were brothers.
No, I mean, but a lot of people actually do. A lot of people to this day
still... Well, he's stuck, and I'm sure as we go through Hogan's career, but if you actually notice, everywhere that Hogan went, at some point, the Brutus the Barber Beefcake wound up at some point along the way.
He did. And speaking of Hogan really got his first break. His first big break, he went in the early 80s, late like 79, 80. He went to the WWF. He was, of course, not the Hulk Hogan we all know and love. He was a heel, actually, with Classy Freddie Blassie as his manager. Yes. And he had a big feud with actually predating his WrestleMania 3 encounter with Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant at Shea Stadium.
Yeah, that was his big selling point at the time.
To think the claim to fame for Shea Stadium was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Incredible. That's almost amazing.
That was Shea Stadium's
No pun intended.
Well, that's a whole nother show about Shea Stadium. But Hogan actually he left the WWF at the time because he got offered a part in Rocky 3. And of course,
Amy Ball.
you would think, well, Vince McMahon loves that kind of thing. Why would he fire him over taking a part in Rocky 3? Because this was actually Vince McMahon Sr.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want anyone to. He's like, you're a wrestler, you're not an actor.
No one's bigger than the business. No one, the brotherhood of the wrestling organizations back then, it was very different than we know it from the mid-90s and even today the way it is with WWE and the other promotions, the indie promotions.
Well, let's just say it's a good thing he took that part.
Yeah.
Because took that part. Everyone in the planet saw Rocky 3. It was like the #1 movie of that era.
It's a Rocky movie.
Yeah. And he used that popularity. He went to the AWA up in Memphis, and
Vern Gagne.
he was a precursor to Hulkamania that you saw in the WWF at the time. He feuded with Nick Bockwinkel for the title. The fans loved him.
They never got the payoff though. You never got Hogan. Actually, I believe at one point Hogan did finally beat Nick Bockwinkel.
They used the Dusty finish where they said, he threw him over the top rope.
Over the top rope, which back then, if you threw someone over the top rope, was a disqualification. So Hogan actually doesn't win the title. They do the whole celebration, everything, and the referee gets up and he said, and Bobby the Brain Heenan was Nick Bockwinkel's manager.
Yes, and as you'll see, he feuded a lot with Bobby Heenan because now after there was the story is that Vern Gagne wanted some of Hogan's percentages from Japan because Hogan. Anyway, Hogan was actually a very big star in Japan at the time. He was the IWGP champion in 1983.
Yes. Now, not to cut you off real quick. Now, picture the IWGP title, which nowadays is a wrestler's title. So guys like AJ Styles have had it. I believe Okada is the champion now. Even if you go back to several years ago, Kurt Angle was the champion.
So Brock
Lesnar was the champion. So Hulk Hogan was this champion. So Hulk Hogan had to have something right to him.
I mean, that was big, but when he went back to the WWF and he won the title from the Iron Sheik, that was the true...
Finish this story.
Okay, well, anyway, Vern Gagne wanted Hogan to give some of his money from Japan. Hogan was not having that because Vern Gagne didn't get him booked in Japan. He booked himself in Japan.
Yes.
So he took his ball. He went right to Vince McMahon, who wanted to try something different. He wanted to use Hogan as his main star, something that AWA should have done.
Vern Gagne is the prototypical old school territorial owner. He, like Vince Sr., believed in wrestling. Vince McMahon saw this thing called sports entertainment and just saw the dollar signs in Hulk Hogan.
Yes, and of course, as you know, he won the title from the Iron Sheik in 1984, and it was off to the races there. WWE started to, and wrestling in general, started to just explode in popularity.
Yeah, the money just started rolling in.
Hogan was all over the place. He was on Saturday Night Live. He was doing all this. He was the reason for why WrestleMania was so successful.
And, coincidental enough, we say about him getting fired from the WWF the first time because of Rocky 3. In WrestleMania 1, his tag team partner is Mr. T.
Mr. T. He didn't even have to defend his title. Think about that nowadays. The main event of WrestleMania is a tag team match.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that no matter what celebrity was in the tag team match, it would not main event WrestleMania.
No. That wouldn't have even been one of the co-main events. I think the last time a celebrity wrestled at WrestleMania may have been Maria Menounos.
Actually, it was Maria Menounos. I was thinking of the Snooki.
Of the Snooki one. That was at 26.
27.
27, yes. Yeah. Oh, God, I was dead.
Well, we actually mentioned Snooki and AJ Styles in an episode about Hulk Hogan.
Wow, this show is going down. Well, folks, this is our 10th and probably our last episode of Fans Perspective. No, but anyway, continuing on.
Anyway, Hogan was a perennial WrestleMania main eventer. And you could not have WrestleMania without Hogan. I mean, you had his first match against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff and Mr. T.
Yep.
WrestleMania 2 with King Kong Bundy.
King Kong Bundy and steel cage match.
Then you're starting to get into the really big WrestleManias.
Well, this is where we all learned about this, folks. And this is where the power lies. WrestleMania 3 against Andre the Giant.
That's another moment where you cannot talk about wrestling without talking about the 90,000 people that went to see that event.
Largest WrestleMania crowd in history. At the time, I believe, set the indoor attendance record, which was 93,000 and change.
Yeah, and
for an event.
And that was even though Hogan had been champion for a few years at the time, that really was the passing of the torch.
Yes.
And then even the next year when Hogan wasn't involved in the main event, it was Macho Man Randy Savage, of course, won the title. He was involved in the main event, and it was the setup for the big storyline. which is probably one of Hogan's most famous storylines, the Mega Powers.
It's probably his biggest storyline in WWF.
And
I mean, he's had other things, but the payoff is what made it what it was.
You know what it was? The emotion was real. You knew Savage and Elizabeth. He was jealous.
Emotion. What do I always tell you about, Junior? Emotion.
That really is, and that drew it over the top. I mean, the match was great. The storyline was amazing. The payoff, the WrestleMania, a lot of the WrestleMania before that was lackluster, but the main event was phenomenal.
Right, and you know it leads up the whole, like we said, the whole Mega Powers exploding, Macho Man attacking him in the trainer's room where Elizabeth's getting looked at, and you know beating him up. He tells him, "You have lust in your eyes, brother." You know, so the whole setup was there, and it's one of the first big feuds you could remember, like.
Really
resonating. Yeah, like really coming off with a payoff. Because now here it is. The Macho Man has been a champion for a year. You have Hulkamania that even though he's not champion, he's there. He's still the guy. So it spelled itself out. The Mega Powers exploding.
And then if you want to go even crazier, talk about the next year. See, a lot of people say Hogan was a bad wrestler.
I disagree.
And because he carried Ultimate Warrior to his best match ever.
Yes.
And that WrestleMania 6 match is, if you really haven't watched it, go back and watch it objectively. It is a great match. The crowd is going absolutely bananas.
All right. I'm not going to disagree with you about it being Warrior's match.
Warrior's best match.
The match at Mania 7 with Macho in the retirement match, but that's here and there. That's another topic for another day.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, okay.
However,
that was
the magnitude of the match was, now this was no longer heel versus face, good guy versus bad guy. Now you had the two biggest good guys of the company. Not only that, but you had the Intercontinental Champion and the WWF Champion in the main events.
And Hogan stepped aside for Warrior.
Yeah.
That was, I believe, his first WrestleMania loss.
It actually is his first WrestleMania loss.
Well, if you don't count, but because when Andre the Giant WrestleMania 4, the rematch, that was a double DQ.
It was a double DQ. Technically, it's like a draw in boxing or UFC.
I mean, to this point, Hogan, like I said, Hogan's been involved in every main event, WrestleMania at this time. Now, WrestleMania 7 against Slaughter, another very underrated match.
Which is real interesting because they originally, the story behind it is Sergeant Slaughter at the time was the big anti-American going around burning the American flag. He's an Iraqi sympathist. This is around the time of the Gulf War. And the rumor was that they were originally supposed to be in the LA Coliseum. And there were several threats made on Sergeant Slaughter's life. So they had to move it to, I forget what I don't think it was the Western Forum. I think it was just a smaller arena. Now, that was rumors. What is believed is that they weren't selling very well ticket-wise, and they just moved it there to save face. It is what it is at the end of the day. Hulk Hogan wins the WWF title. Typical Hogan fashion, little blade job, little blood cap. Call it a day, brother, take it home.
And I'm glad you actually brought up about the ticket sales, because it really was around this time that the popularity wasn't quite what it was, and Hogan was getting a little stale. Mm-hmm. So at WrestleMania 8, he had he was facing some steroid accusations, and Hogan fans were getting a little tired of him. So he had his retirement match against, which was not his best. WrestleMania.
Let's bring another thing. We bring in politics. Now, see, this is where the politic part of Hulk Hogan starts.
It was supposed to be Hogan and Flair. Let's just face facts.
Yes. And neither guy, to Flair's credit, Flair was the biggest draw. Everyone thinks Ric Flair, well, he was in WCW. Flair was touring the country and the world and selling places out, putting on 60-minute matches left and right. You would say Hogan's the good guy, Hogan should go over at WrestleMania. I tend to disagree. I think Flair should have went over.
Especially if Hogan was going to retire.
Yes, exactly. And it would have made it better that Hogan goes out on his back so that when he comes back, well, there's your money angle. Hulk Hogan's coming back to avenge his loss.
Well, when he came back the next year. That was another, he faced him and Brutus Beefcake against Money Incorporated in the semi-main event. See that?
Yes.
Now, you might think that he was not involved in the main event.
You would just say, all right, well, I believe they lost by disqualification. Oh, they win by disqualification.
Yes. But now, this is where people started to kind of detest Hogan because of what happened. Now, Bret Hart and Yokozuna were in the main event.
Put on a decent match, too.
Yeah, Bret Hart drops the title to Yokozuna.
Mr. Fuji, salt in the face. Kah!
Hogan, for some reason, Hogan comes out. And they challenge him to a match. He wins the title in 30 seconds. The crowd doesn't know what's going on.
Okay.
Hogan is like 100 pounds lighter.
Here you have Bret Hart, who at the time is the WWF champion for several months. At least I would say at that point, 4 or 5, no, more than that, maybe about 7, 8 months. Okay? And he cannot beat Yokozuna. And then you have Hulk Hogan come out and beat him in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, they played it off like it was a mistake, but still, how are you, the main event of WrestleMania ending like that? That
terrible.
Didn't quite make any sense.
Terrible.
They could have perfectly well set up for the match.
Such a terrible idea that he loses 2 months later.
Yeah, he
at the inaugural King
he
of the Ring.
lost, and the rumor was he was supposed to lose to Bret at SummerSlam. He was supposed to do him the favor, but he never quite. He passed the torch into Yokozuna instead of Bret, and it was just a little strange.
And then he goes off into the sunset.
Or did he? Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about Hulk Hogan.
See, that's called a segue. That's called, giving them a little appetito so that they come back for more.
Oh, they'll be back. And when we come back, we're going to have a little bit more about Hulk Hogan. And so just stay tuned, fans. We'll be right back.
Segue.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Gennady, host of Hiking the Hudson, a monthly show about the history and hiking trails throughout the Hudson Valley. You can catch new and old episodes at Facebook/BoneyardPro. If you have any questions or suggestions for places I should go, follow me on Twitter at GuitarGod1984. Remember, Hiking the Hudson every month on Facebook/BoneyardPro. See you on the trail.
So why are you wearing red?
I'm red. You didn't get your notes. You were supposed to wear yellow.
Yellow. Roddy Piper. I'm supposed to wear red.
Roddy Piper. Where did you get Roddy Piper?
Well, we're back.
But anyway, fans, we are back, and we've seen our little red shirts here for Hogan.
I wore it for Roddy Piper.
And,
anyway, I have quite an interesting story about Hulk Hogan.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Back in them, late 80s, early 90s, they were doing, shows and everything, and he was supposed to go over to Japan to defend the WWF title. And I believe we're supposed to face Antonio Inoki.
Oh, legendary.
WWE Hall of Famer. And as legend goes, Inoki was having a problem with laying down or taking the fall to Hogan. So he was going around telling people that he was not going to lose to Hulk Hogan. Now, a contract was signed, and there was no way out of this. Hogan had to go there. So the story is Vince McMahon went to Hogan and said, you have to come back with our title. Like, if you lose our title, we could go out of business. Like, this is how serious this was to Vince. So Hogan, the whole ride over there, had no idea what to do, trying to figure it out, and came up with the idea of, all right, the only way I'm going to beat this guy is if I beat this guy. And the match starts, and I don't know how long it goes for, but apparently Hogan literally chokes out Inoki. Wow. And that's how he beats him, and got on a plane and came right back to the U.S. And as story goes, not many people Andre the Giant respected. When Andre got wind of this, Andre really respected that Hogan did whatever he could to bring back the title. Wow. For the WWF.
Wow, that's a good one. I didn't hear that before.
Of course you did. That's why I get the stats and I get the facts and I do what I do and you sit over there.
Well, you're part of my team, all right?
Anyway.
Somehow, this is why. But Hogan, of course, we talked about Hogan left the WWF at the time. This is where we're getting into, this around 92, 93. Mm-hmm. He actually, to do Thunder in Paradise, which is a TV show. This is Hogan really had this wasn't his first acting gig. He had quite a few acting gigs besides for Rocky III and Thunder in Paradise. He of course was in Suburban Commando.
No Holds Barred.
No Holds Barred was probably one of his most famous movies. He did that this is a precursor to WWF films.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, No Holds Barred.
It was with Tiny.
Yes, Tiny.
I forget what it's Zeus, but I know his nickname is Tiny. He's been in a bunch of the Friday movies and everything.
Everyone knows him. And then you had, like I said, Suburban Commando, and then Mr. Nanny.
Three Ninjas.
Oh, with his ridiculous toupee.
What is it? Three Ninjas, Skull Mountain, Knuckle Up Skull Mountain.
Return to
Mountain. Yeah. Oh my God.
Let's just say Hogan is famous, but his movie career did not reach the heights of, say, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I
don't even think they reached Stone Cold Steve Austin.
They didn't reach John Cena.
I don't.
Okay, let's go that far. He didn't reach Johnson. John Cena's made terrible. 12 rounds.
Well, thankfully for wrestling fans, this hiatus didn't last long, and Hogan was re-entering the wrestling world. Now, It wasn't with who you would expect, though.
Story goes, Eric Bischoff took over WCW, and just sitting there one day and asked, I forget what the gentleman's name is, but said, if you were running the business, what would you do? And the guy said, I would sign Hulk Hogan. And sure enough, on WCW Saturday night, it broke. Tony Schiavone screaming, "What is this? What is this coming across our ticker?" Yes, World Championship Wrestling has signed Hulk Hogan.
It was big. I mean, WCW was known. It was still kind of known as that Southern regional promotion known for Ric Flair. And that's not a knock to Ric Flair or Sting or Lex Luger. Vader. But you had these guys.
Well, Lex Luger was gone already. Lex Luger was already in the WWE.
Well, he was still known for WCW.
Right, yes, correct.
But, Hogan's signing really kind of legitimized WCW. It gave people notice.
It didn't shift the power, but it put them on notice. And let people know that, hey, we're here too.
Sure enough, just like when a sports team that's kind of a down signs one free agent, other ones to follow, like such as the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yep.
Jimmy Hart.
Hart came with Hogan.
Bobby the Brain Heenan joined him.
Hulk Hogan's
Earthquake, all those guys.
Mean Gene Okerlund.
Yes, and this is also when they started they went directly against the WWE with the Monday Night Wars.
Well, Hulk Hogan's first match in WCW was against Ric Flair and was for the WCW World Championship. And in his first match, he became the WCW World Heavyweight Champion.
That's true. I mean, of course, everything with Hogan wasn't so good at this time. He had his little feud with the Dungeon of Doom.
Oh, my God.
The Giant.
The Giant. When the Giant comes out at Fall Brawl War Games and tries to snap his neck in half.
And then sure enough, Hogan gets stale again, and he takes a little break. But, see, Hogan, being the businessman that he is, being the genius that he is, him and Bischoff decided to do something a little different.
And it was a gamble. And they weren't sure that Hulk was going to go for it.
But you know what? Hogan, being the businessman that he is, saw the money train rolling. And he joined Kevin Nash and Scott Hall as the NW.
Let's set it up a little bit. Macho's down. Everybody in the match is down. Luger had gotten carried out earlier in the match. It was supposed to be
of course,
the
Bash at the Beach.
Bash at the Beach, 96. Yeah, they're waiting for whoever their third man is, Hall and Nash. Luger gets hurt, so it's just Sting and Macho against Hall and Nash. Out comes Hogan and the infamous Bobby the Brain Heenan line.
Yep.
But whose side is he on? And, if I was that age now, I would have sat there and said, oh my God, he's about to turn heel.
But when you're younger, you didn't think about it.
Yeah, you're like, this is Hulk Hogan. There's no way he becomes a bad guy. Sure enough, gets in the ring, leg drop to Macho Man, and then the old...
Do you know that I watched the first Nitro just because I heard about it, and I never watched WCW after that until I heard that Hulk Hogan.
It was earth shattering. It was groundbreaking. It was everything it was supposed to be. There's not many times in life, especially for wrestling fans, us and as yourselves watching, that you could say, "Oh my God, that was a moment." Really, the only thing I put up there is the streak ending. It's the only other significant thing that it makes you think, oh my God, what just happened? And that was it.
And the beauty of it was, like I said, fans were already turning on him. He played on and they knew WCW fans were like, can we even trust this guy?
Yeah.
And it was brilliant because there you have Nash and Hall representing the WWF.
Right.
And who represents the WWF more than Hulk Hogan?
Yes.
And he takes from the biggest, most popular face in wrestling to the biggest bad guy.
Yeah.
In professional wrestling.
When he gives the old infamous, and you fans can stick it.
Garbage pelt.
Great. Garbage is going, like, it was like a mob scene. Like, you would have thought he would have said, like, the N-word or something. Moving on.
Anyways, Hogan became the biggest heel, bar none, in professional wrestling. Actually, you want to hear something funny? I cannot believe I didn't think about this.
Nothing you say is ever funny, but go ahead.
Well, not funny, but it's interesting. I didn't think about
Nor
this
anything you say
before when I was writing, the notes for this episode. But do you know that Hogan actually almost went back to the WWE in 1998?
Did he really?
Yes, I remember looking through some old Pro Wrestling Torch archives one day. I saw there was rumors, especially when WCW signed Bret Hart. It was after that Sting feud. Everyone thought the NWO was going to fall apart at that time.
Right.
Of course, Sting feuding with the NWO. Hogan versus Sting was a huge feud. The match itself...
Starrcade 97.
The match itself didn't really go as planned.
You know what it was? Sting came back, and it just he wasn't in the same shape.
And Hogan even says that he was going to sign with Vince McMahon, but the money wasn't there at the time. And you would have never known if we would have seen Hollywood Hogan versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Well, it didn't work out with Ric Flair. Actually, we can get into that, actually, because that'll be later on when other segments.
Oh yes, we're gonna. But Hogan then after this kind of, I think the downfall.
Do you remember? Hold on, when we're in the NWO stage now, when it first happened, it was Halloween Havoc, I believe, '96, and he was facing Macho that night, and he comes out, and my God, the hairpiece that this guy has.
I wish we could director. Do we have
director? Do we have that?
Because this is what a heel does.
Please. Oh my God!
But
he
anyway, he has this Zack Ryder spiky hair, and Macho Man at one point takes it off, and
Folks,
he's like,
let's just think of it, Zack Ryder with the woo woo woo, headband and hairpiece. This is what Hulk Hogan was wearing, making people think that it was real.
He was playing up this was around the time of the Three Ninjas, I think.
Yes.
So this hairpiece is...
it's oh my God, it's so bad.
But it was perfect. It's really something that I like. Because everyone knows Hogan is bald. Everyone knows him.
And this is at the as the NWO was building steam. You know, because now he just fought Macho Man at Halloween Havoc. At the end of that match is when Roddy Piper shows up. He fights Roddy Piper at Starrcade. You know, and he's losing the matches that don't matter, but he's still ending up with the WCW World Title at the end of the day.
That's true. And this brings up our little fan question of the week here. Speaking of, since we talked about his WCW career, this is from Frank Mahoney in Dearborn, Michigan. Frank's asked, do you guys think that Hogan was more successful in the WWE or WCW? Most people think it's the WWE, but I really enjoyed his run as Hollywood Hogan. What are you guys' opinion?
I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm going to go with the WCW run. People are going to say I'm crazy. They're going to say I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. He took a company that was borderline watchable and made it the most watchable thing in the industry. Now, he had help. There was other things, the cruiserweights, all that. Bottom line, Hulk Hogan was the tip of the spear that was going through the heart of the WWF.
Now, see, I will say that, you know, if you look at the pure numbers, he was more successful in the WWF. However, you bring up a great point because one is he completely changed. He completely turned around his character.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people go from such a popular face to a hated heel, they have a hard time getting people to boo them.
Right.
Hogan didn't have that problem.
No, they booed him.
He also was responsible for something that will probably never happen again and has not happened before, and that was that he made WWE the #2 promotion.
Absolute fact. In the height of the Monday Night Wars, Hulk Hogan was it. He was the champion during most of it. And, you know, we talk about the champions during WWF's run. You know, at the time you had Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Diesel. They were some of the lowest rated champions of all time. You're talking about I wouldn't say Diesel, Kevin Nash, one of the greatest wrestlers, but Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart are two of the greatest of all time. You know, and Hogan, while it was just him, was going one-on-one with Rock and Austin.
It was. I mean, Hogan really carried the ball there in WCW. I mean, he put over a new star, Goldberg, in the Georgia Dome.
The infamous Georgia Dome incident.
Our friend Rob Knight out there likes to talk
about. And see, this just shows you where a booking sense, and Hogan had his creative control card. You know, bottom line, Hogan the politic is Hogan the politic. And for him not to realize that this was a bad idea just shows that he just didn't care.
Oh, you mean you're talking about the...
Well, not only that,
finger poke.
Not only the finger poke, but talking about the Georgia Dome incident. Here you had...
Well, no, Goldberg deserved the bell at the time.
I agree, but what I mean is that here you put 40,000 people for a Monday Nitro in the Georgia Dome. If you would have given that... They announced it that Wednesday on Thunder.
Yeah,
Thursday on Thunder.
I remember. I was shocked.
If you would have given another 2 weeks to whatever that pay-per-view that was coming up was...
Actually, you know what pay-per-view was coming up? The reason why they didn't do it on a pay-per-view? Because it was Karl Malone and DDP against Dennis Rodman and Hogan.
And that just shows you that how one-sided, because Hogan was more into the popularity of, well, I'm going to have Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman in the ring.
Actually,
then I could have Goldberg, and we could have the Georgia Dome with 70,000 people.
I don't know if you can blame that on Hogan. I think that was a product of his time, because back then, WCW had already started fading to the WWE and the Monday Night Wars, and they wanted to get that big victory on Nitro. And that was the last time that WCW won the Monday Night War.
I agree, and I understand what you're saying. But again, he had that player control card, that infamous player control card.
And you're doing another segue, because we're going to talk. WCW's popularity was fading, and just quickly before we go into a commercial break, Hogan started to get that reputation as he doesn't put anyone over. He's a politicker. Fans were starting to get tired of him again. Vince Russo, the writer of WWE, took over WCW. They did a terrible feud with the New Blood and the Millionaires Club.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hogan, I got stuff on that for you.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But basically, long story short, at Bash at the Beach, I believe it's 2000, Hogan was going to face Jeff Jarrett for the world title. Now, if you're a wrestling fan, you know about this. Vince Russo set up a little thing where Jeff Jarrett just laid down for Hogan. Hogan took the pin. When Hogan left the building, Vince Russo came out and completely trashed Hulk Hogan and called him out for everything that the fans, the smart fans at the time, despised about him. Mm-hmm. And you never saw Hulk Hogan in WCW again. And soon after, WCW was bought out by the WWE. And when we come back, we're gonna segue into a little bit of the future. But our Fans 5 will be up on deck. So you stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I can't handle this editing anymore. This is completely frustrating. How much more work do I do? Good grief. Oh. I didn't hear you come in. Hi, everyone. My name is John Harder. Wanting you to check out the Hardway HQ Podcasting Network, courtesy of thejohnharder.com. Check out great podcasts such as The Hard Way, Nick and John live in New Jersey, the Hardcore BF Podcast, and so much more. You can find us again, thejohnharder.com, or on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Hardway HQ. Be there.
You just can't help it. The guy was a politic in POS.
Well, that's what some people think.
It's like some people on this show.
We're back. Hey, fans, we're back. And this is fast becoming the most popular part of the show. It's the Hardway Podcast presents our Fans 5.
John Hardway, great guy.
Great guy, great podcast.
Great.
And we are going to,
awesome show.
He will, be appearing on a show in the future, so stay tuned.
I hope so. He's a good guy. He's a Met fan, but we can look past that.
That's why I like him.
Of course.
Anyways, I think we'll get started with the Fans 5. I'm going to talk about my top favorite.
Whoa. Why do you get to do it first?
Well, I mean, if you want to go first.
You got to do it first last week. Maybe I want to do mine first this week.
All right. So you have your top 5 Fans 5 favorite Hogan moments?
No. I have my top 5 anti-Hulk Hogan moments.
Anti?
Because here we are, we're sitting here, we're blowing steam up this guy's behind, and let's talk about some of the anti-Hulk Hogan moments. Some of my personal favorites. My Fans 5, presented by the Hardway Podcast. So for number 5, Billy Bleepin' Kidman. Yes, folks, that's right. Billy Kidman was entrenched in a sick feud with Hulk Hogan in the 2000s, which led to several victories. All right, now let me say that again, and I quote, several victories. He beat Hulk Hogan not once, but twice on WCW Monday Nitro. He beat Hulk Hogan, Billy Kidman. We're not talking some of the great wrestlers of all time. No, we're talking about Billy Kidman. Oh, my God. Moving on to number 4, which my, we'll say, co-host mentioned before. The infamous Vince Russo firing Hulk Hogan. It was at Bash at the Beach 2000. Vince Russo comes back out, and he just cuts this epic pipe bomb promo. One of the first real things spoke. And Shivani says it when Vince Russo's walking out. This isn't Vince Russo the booker. This is Vince Russo Vince Russo the character. This is Vince Russo the boss. And he comes in and he drops some profanities and he just goes off how you'll never see Hulk Hogan in this ring again. Which he was wrong because we eventually did see Hulk Hogan in that ring again. Number 3, one of my personal favorites, King of the Ring, 93. When Yokozuna beats Hulk Hogan. And not only does he beat him, he beats him with a fireball to the face. Right there. Fireball to the face off a camera. See, it just shows you how much of a Hollywood superstar Hulk Hogan was that he needed to take a picture during a match. Banzai. Number 2, something that just brings warmth to my heart. It was July 4th, 2005. And Shawn Michaels super kicks Hulk Hogan.
I can't argue that.
And not only does he super kick him, he stands there with this epic look of disdain. Like, I've hated you this whole time, and finally I get the chance to kick your stinking teeth down your throat. It leads to Shawn Michaels losing, but of course, once again, Hulk Hogan politicking. Oh, brother, I'll give you the win back. Yeah, he doesn't give him the win back. He gives him a freaking hip surgery. And then finally, last but not least, my number 1 moment. And, I'm starting to realize, as much as I love Shawn Michaels, I think I love Brock Lesnar even more. On the August 8th edition of SmackDown, it was Brock Lesnar versus Hulk Hogan. And Brock Lesnar absolutely demolishes him. I mean, powerbomb, bear hug, F5, makes him bleed. One of the infamous Brock moments where he wipes the blood off his forehead and just spreads it across his chest. And at that moment, immediately, Brock Lesnar became God, our Lord and Savior.
Well, yeah, Hogan puts no one over, right?
Exactly. Well, he had no choice. Brock Lesnar would have killed. Did you see what Brock Lesnar did to John Cena? Did you see what Brock Lesnar did to The Undertaker? Of course he was going to put him over. He was terrified of him. And ladies, don't you ever interrupt me again during my Fans 5. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Fans 5 presented by the Hard Way Podcast.
Well, thank you, Mr. Negative.
That.
Well, anyways, Mr. Negative here. This is not to insult Hulk Hogan, so I don't know where you came from, but this is my Fans 5. This is not necessarily the best Hulk Hogan moments, but these are my favorite Hulk Hogan moments that have an emotional connection to me. Number 5 was Hulk Hogan was the NWO when they returned to the WWE versus The Rock and Austin from Raw, March 11, 2002. The reason why this random Raw, you would say, is one of my favorite moments, well, Hulk Hogan had just came back from the WWE, and like I said, I have a friend who is the biggest Hulk Hogan fan you will ever meet. Good old Rob Knight. I don't know if he's watching this because he doesn't really go on the internet much, but he would watch this if he knew about we were talking about Hulk Hogan. But anyway, we marked out so much when Hogan dropped The Rock and pinned him. It was just amazing. My number 4 moment is Hogan versus Warrior from WrestleMania 6. Just the electricity, the build-up. When I was a kid, I remember I'd gotten to wrestling a little bit after this time, and I would go to Blockbuster to rent old events and old videos. And
Wow,
when I saw
Blockbuster
this,
name drop.
And when I saw this WrestleMania 6 cover with Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior, I knew, I was like, I have to rent this video right away and watch this match. And as a kid, I loved it. I thought it was great. I was like, wow, that was amazing. Now, number 3 is another great crowd moment where Hogan lost, actually. It was WrestleMania 18 versus The Rock, Icon versus Icon. I mean, I remember watching that, being a big Hogan fan. I did not like The Rock at this time. I never was a huge fan of The Rock.
Of course you didn't.
And I remember cheering for Hogan so hard, rooting for Hogan. The fans were getting behind Hogan. I was so excited. It was just a great match. It made that WrestleMania. Number 2, of course, the NWO formation, Bash at the Beach, 1996. It's just one of the most iconic moments in wrestling. We talked about it already, so I'm not going to get too much into it. Because the number 1, you might find this shocking. My number one Hulk Hogan moment.
You still talking shocks me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyways, my number 1 Hulk Hogan moment, SmackDown, June 26th, 2003. Hulk Hogan, known as Mr. America, teamed up with Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle to face Big Show and Team Angle. Now, you might be saying to yourself, why is this your number 1 Hogan moment? Well, you see, me and my Hogan friend fan, Rob Knight here, were in the crowd for that SmackDown in Madison Square Garden. Do you know we had an American flag with us? I asked Rob, why do we have this flag? He said, I just think, we'll get recognized. Okay, whatever. We're 5 rows behind. Hogan's celebrating at the end, and he pointed to both of us holding the flag. And we just both looked at each other like, did Hulk Hogan just point to us? And the referee, Mike Chioda, actually called us over to the ring. We went over to the front, and Hulk Hogan took the flag. Took our flag. The whole time we're marking out, Hogan has the flag. He took the flag. He took the flag. It was amazing. Like, Hulk Hogan actually took the flag. And we got it back at the end. Mike Chioda took our picture underneath the SmackDown fist. I wish I had it to show you, but Rob has that. That's on him. But yeah, that's why that is my number 1 Hulk Hogan moment.
So, let me understand this. This is a guy who, whether we like him or not, transcends wrestling, has done it all in the world, slams Andre, beats Macho, beats everyone he could possibly beat except for Brock Lesnar. God. And your number 1 moment is him taking your stupid flag and celebrating with it.
That was a personal moment. Did you have no sentimentality?
Just move on.
Moving on.
Move on.
By the
way, our Fans 5 was brought to you by the Hard Way Podcast.
Yeah, the Hard.
Way to go. Way to go. Hard Way Podcast, which, again, John Harder, great guy. Check it out. Awesome show. Now continue. Oh, my God.
Anyways, there was a lot of things in our Fans 5 that we didn't cover because you're probably, WrestleMania 18. Now, in 2002, WCW was a memory. The Invasion angle had finished, which Hint, hint, hint.
Hint, hint.
Hearing more about the invasion
hint.
in the future.
You're learning about segways. Good job. Oh, man.
Anyways, Hulk Hogan returned as part of the NWO. And he was originally a heel. Him and Kevin Nash. I remember as a young teenager, I was thrilled.
I'm going to throw it out there. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong. February 17, 2002 was the day that they showed up.
Yes, 2002 actually is one of the most underrated years in WWF history. And this is one of the reasons why.
I was on a train going to Florida when it happened.
Oh, I feel so bad for you. I remember watching in my room, marking out like a little kid. I mean, I was a teenager at the time. But then Hogan, the biggest thing was Hogan versus Rock, Icon versus Icon. Now, this is a poor WrestleMania, but that match.
I'm going to tend to disagree. I think that was actually a pretty decent WrestleMania.
Really?
I would think so.
We'll be discussing that, but we're really here to talk about the Icon versus Icon match.
You mean the Icon versus kind of the Icon? Because we have another situation of where Hogan would refuse to let someone go over him who should go over him, which would be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What I heard, it wasn't that Hogan, like I said, I want to talk about the Icon versus Icon match, but quickly touching upon that. What I heard was that Steve Austin didn't want to work against Hogan because he had some personal vendetta against Hulk Hogan. And if you remember, at this time, and we'll touch upon this when we do Steve Austin. Steve Austin was right before he walked out, he wasn't in the right frame of mind.
Yes. I also believe that he didn't feel Hogan should go over him, nor should he have.
But Hogan laid down for The Rock.
Well,
if you remember the match, Hogan...
Different circumstances. You have to look like this. When Hogan went back, he was under the mercy of Vince. He no longer held that creative control card.
His reputation was a little tarnished, so I think that him returning home...
He went very
funny,
humble.
The fans were very down on Hogan at the time, but the instant that he got in that ring and the crowd was behind him, he rode just a huge wave of popularity.
Well, it's kind of funny. The Canadian crowd really is what shifted the momentum, and it's a lot of times now the New York, Philly, Chicago crowds really are the ones that persuade a lot of things, and where they go to other towns and people are doing whatever the big cities were doing.
Yeah.
Back then, Canada had a lot to do with it.
It really did.
Everybody talks about the 1, 2, the kick out, and everyone going 2. That started in Canada.
Yes, it did.
So the Canadian fans cheering Hogan and booing The Rock had a big deal to do with where both of them would go from there.
That's true. I just think that I think fans were just like, we want to see the old Hulk Hogan back. It was a nostalgia trip. It was a nostalgia trip.
Yeah.
And if you remember, Hogan laid down for The Rock. Soon he was teaming with The Rock.
Yes.
And he actually...
And Kane.
Yes, the Canaanites. But surprisingly enough, soon after that, Hulk Hogan once again found himself as the WWE Undisputed World Champion.
He beats Triple H at, I believe, Judgment Day.
Do you remember the ovation he got on
Backlash.
that one SmackDown?
Backlash.
Do you remember?
Yes, it was incredible.
Hulkamania was running wild again back in 2002 in the WWE.
It shouldn't have been running. It was more like it was wheeling, like a wheelchair, like at the end of its run.
He was the WWE champion.
He shouldn't have been. It was a terrible idea.
Was it a terrible idea?
Yes. It was a way to get the belt off of Triple H and not having Undertaker beat Triple H. So you do it with the hottest person there is at the time, Hulk Hogan. Again, face versus face. Because at the time, Triple H was one of the biggest faces.
And we all know Triple H works better as he.
Yeah, so you got the belt off of Triple H, you got it onto Hogan, you have Taker then beat Hogan, you do the infamous hog tying to the back of a motorcycle and having him drag through the arena. Oh my God, it was just so bad.
I mean, Hogan was a full-time player. Hogan stayed in the WWE for a while, kind of as a part-time player. He had his feuds with Shawn Michaels.
He did the Shawn Michaels feud.
He wrestled Shawn, his little Randy Orton feud.
Yeah. He had the WrestleMania 19 match with Vince McMahon.
Oh, that was an amazing, very underrated street fight.
It really is. For Vince McMahon, he's not a wrestler by any means of the word, but it had an emotion to it because Vince was bringing up the stuff about Hogan leaving, Hogan trying to kill his company, Hogan turning against him in the whole steroid case, and you have Hogan saying he created Hulkamania, not Vince McMahon.
It was like I said, if you haven't seen that match, you should go back and watch it if you like just story and it's a great match. It's not the most, just like his WrestleMania 18 match, it's not the most technically sound match, but it didn't need to be. It was what it was.
The 18 match actually isn't as bad as people think it is.
Exactly.
It's actually pretty decent to watch, and the crowd makes it what it is. But like you mentioned, the Shawn and the Orton matches, that one actually came later on. That came after WrestleMania 21.
Yeah, he was more of a bit, he became he was getting older, so he became more of a part-time player.
Yeah. Because he wasn't there for WrestleMania 20,
no.
But he got inducted into the Hall of Fame the year of WrestleMania 21.
And he came out with Eugene.
Right, Muhammad Hassan is beating up Eugene and Hogan makes the save.
Like I said, that was...
Eugene.
Anyway, that was Hogan as a part-time player. Now, in 2007, Hulk Hogan... Hulk Hogan
the
joined...
ego, brother, the ego.
Hulk, for whatever reason, he had a little falling out with Vince again, and he joined TNA Wrestling, Impact Wrestling.
Once again, he joined TNA Wrestling.
And it wasn't the same as when he joined WCW. I mean, they tried to go on Monday nights and they got their ass kicked, frankly.
Yeah. Literally.
Terrible matches against Ric Flair and Sting.
Oh my God.
He had that group Immortal. It was a low point in Hogan's career. Thankfully, in 2014, he came home.
Yes, he did.
To World Wrestling Entertainment as the host of WrestleMania 30.
And it kind of, brought him, first of all, the moment, and trust me, I know about the moment because, hey, guess what? I was there. The moment of having him, Austin, and Rock in a ring together was something you thought you would never see. And it was incredible. What was also incredible is him calling, the Superdome, the Silver Dome.
But, fans were so happy to see him back that they didn't even care.
Didn't even care. Yeah, because it was
just
laughed at. It became a laugh for everybody,
I mean, Hogan has done so much for the business.
Actually, I have some Hogan stats if I could read them off to you.
Sure, let's hear it let's hear some.
Well, he was a 6-time WWE champion. He was a 6-time WCW champion. He's also the longest reigning WCW champion of all time. And he has 2 of the top 10 longest in WWF of all time. He's a 2-time Royal Rumble winner. His only non-heavyweight title championship was a tag team championship run that he had with Edge, which they won on July 4th.
That was a great moment.
2005, he became, of course, a Hall of Famer. That's all I got.
I mean, hey, Hogan, you cannot argue the significance Hogan had. Now, he became a spokesperson for the network. Now, recently, there's been some
troubled times,
scandal for Hogan. But they so much has been made about their wiping Hogan from the history book. You can't wipe Hogan from the history book.
You have to look at it like this, and you have to look at it both sides of the spectrum, which I really do. From Hulk Hogan's side, whatever he said, he said. I'm sure at some point in our life we've all said something we regret, okay? And we've said it in public that we regret it. In his case, he said it in private. And it was kind of coaxed. Like, you don't really know how it was brought up.
Also, it was during a different time in his life. He was going through a rough divorce.
Right, the divorce and everything. But also you have all these guys who are African-American running to his aid. You have The Rock, who is right now one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, okay, saying this isn't who Hulk Hogan is. This isn't the kind of guy he is. Now from the other end of the spectrum, you have to look at the WWE's point of it. Like, we have to deal with sponsors, board of directors, business people. I don't blame them for what they did by trying to just wipe him out. It's not to the point of, I mentioned before, Chris Benoit. It's not to the point of where you're going to see
where you did
match,
something that's completely unforgivable.
Right, where you're going to see his match. When you go and look up a Chris Benoit match, normally, I don't know how anybody else is, when you look it up on the computer, you'll see little dots that you could just go to that specific match. With Chris Benoit matches, you can't get to that dot. You just have to try to find it and see who he's wrestling. It's not going to be like that with Hulk Hogan. At some point, it's going to be forgiven. When? Who knows?
I mean, I'm not saying that it was okay for him to say what he said.
Right, no, I'm completely against it.
But I feel that he will be back. And I feel that I believe that Hogan has many fans, of African American descent that, like I said, they're not happy. Like, it's not right to what he said, but
right.
He said it at a different time. You can punish the man for something he said 8 years ago when he was an alcoholic and supposedly.
Right. He's such a racist. The first WrestleMania main event was him and Mr. T as a team. He's such a racist that one of his best friends is The Rock. He's such a racist that in his first WCW match, Shaquille O'Neal was involved.
Mr. T, Dennis
Mr.
Rodman.
Mr. T was a referee for the him versus Flair Cajun. Dennis Rodman is a very good friend of his. But this guy is such a racist. No. He made a mistake. It happens.
And
is it right? No, but it happens.
I think if you ask me, I think we will see Hulk Hogan take his rightful place back in the WWE, right where he belongs,
in time.
Entertaining the fans.
Right.
And, well, that's going to wrap up our first Superstar series on Hulk Hogan. Our next episode, we're actually going to take a look at a particular storyline in wrestling. And some would say it might be the biggest storyline in wrestling, or should have been the biggest storyline in wrestling.
That's right, folks. The infamous Chuck and Billy wedding.
Not quite. We're going to be talking about the invasion angle.
The infamous invasion angle.
You did not read your notes before the episode, did you?
I get this paper in front of me with a lot of things jotted down. It's girls' names, brothels. I don't take notes for this show. Anyway, folks, you can follow me on Instagram at SecretAgent84, Twitter at RealMikeGreco, and on Facebook at Michael A. Greco. Hashtag heel, hashtag poo-poo, hashtag PR guy is once again lost, hashtag Mr. Hashtag. Hashtag Boneyard Productions, of course, our home for all of this stuff. You got anything?
You can find me on Instagram as Heavenly Hatch and Twitter. You can find, like I said, Boneyard Productions right on Facebook. You can watch all episodes of Fans Perspective on our YouTube at Boneyard Productions. If you want to go back and watch, say, our Cruiserweight edition or our special SummerSlam edition, of course, that was a great event.
Factions.
And our Factions episode, which, of course, was another good one.
Incredible. Actually, it was really good.
And like I said,
we have the great interview you did with Bill Carr, which I was not there for.
That's right. It seemed to be
You
very
don't.
smooth. It was a little smooth. I remember it. I've just been through so much.
I do have something a little personal I want to just throw out there real quick. I just want to say to the staff and the great production company we have, you guys do a great job. Such a great job that the host of the show, Steve Hatch, is going to be taking everybody out to dinner tonight.
With your credit card. Anyways, fans, thank you once again for another great edition of Fans Perspective. We'll see you, of course, in 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody. Wow.